I'd like to welcome you all, and we're here today to principally to hear Aswathi Surendran, who I'm delighted to say successfully defended her PhD before Christmas. Now, she did a study related to safety behaviour related to machinery, and it was funded by DAFM, Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine, via the Teagasc. Well, I think you had a fellowship, but it was connected into the Teagasc Be Safe program. I just want to give a little background from my perspective, and I'll then hand over to Dr. Denis O'Hora, who will talk about training of trainers, and then we will hand over to Aswathi, and she will give her presentation, and we can then have a discussion. Right, the first thing I want to just point out, which is the obvious, that there are a huge number of farms in the country. There's about 135,000 farms, round figures, nearly all self-employed, 300 people at risk. Let's not worry about the age structure. There's the young and the old there. They're psychologically unbounded, meaning that they predominantly make decisions based on what they think themselves, and that. So there is legal requirements for training, and training is useful in getting adoption of practices. So there is a need for train the trainers, So that's a fundamental point that I'd like to make. Moving on then, let's say I've been involved in this for some years, and, risk communications is a discipline all of its own, but really it requires communicating to farmers what the causes of accidents are to gain improvements. We've got to tell them what's happening, and, what's going wrong, as it were. Now, my own research for the PhD, and I'd like to thank people here who helped me along the way with it. Farmers predominantly thought that power shafts were causing accidents, and indeed, go back 20 or 30 years, and that was the case. But the world changed, and power shafts accidents reduced. I looked at the code of practice briefly before I started, and there was 4 in the 10-year period there. Now, we can never say that power shaft accidents are going to go away or anything like that, and we must, power shaft accidents are horrible things, and indeed there was one already this year, and that, but they have reduced. So the question arose, what replaced them? So when we looked at the data, and we gave it a good look, and the Farm Safety Partnership is always looking at the data. We find in broad terms that it's knockdowns, people getting knocked down, broadly speaking, in their own farmyards. When I say people, I mean family members, the young and the old, the people, the bystanders. Right, we've sent out information to people, and I'd like to thank my colleagues in the HSA for developing it, but new fatalities for the last decade, and lots of other material, but I think the slide I want to put up is that tractors, and that's the tractor vehicle slide. It shows that blind spots are a big issue. 53% of accidents are due to tractors, but teleloaders, maybe other machines as well can be involved in blind spots. Now, I have, with colleagues, published a paper on this where we, back, it's 5 or 6 years ago now, in 2019, where we pointed out, about risk communications and about the change from, power shafts reducing, but knockdowns increasing. Right, we've done a lot of work over the years, and it's not an easy message to get across. Power shafts is dramatic, and we wrapped straw bales in power shafts and that sort of thing. And that was very dramatic and very, there's dread risk associated with it. Blind spots is a bit more challenging, I feel. So I think if I'm correct in this, our colleague Serena Gibbons, this is a picture from Serena and what she was doing. So we are doing blind spots, and I do feel we're getting the message across. And that. So I think it's great that Aswathi got the opportunity to do a doctorate and to do some scientific work associated with this area. Now, my last slide there shows that we made a series of videos last year managing farm health and safety. They're up on the Teagasc website, the HSA website, I think FBD as well. But we have one on farmer blind spots on there. So that's just a short introduction as to where the issue has, where I think the issue has come from, and why we need to work on this area. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Denis O'Hora, and please, and I think you can share your PowerPoint there, Denis. Thanks, and sure, perhaps you might introduce yourself for those people that don't know you.
Hi, everybody. Hope you can hear me. So can you see that screen now?
Yes.
Lovely. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you today. I'm based here at University of Galway. I'm the director of the Master's in Consumer Psychology program, and I also work with John and with Aswathi and David Meredith, Francis, and others in Teagasc around farm safety and looking at how do we encourage behavior change, and how do we take the farm context and farmers seriously when looking at ways they can improve and make their practices safer. Always thinking about working with farmers, understanding their situations and the challenges that they face in keeping themselves safe, and also their family. Remember that every farmer going home in the evening, there's so many people depend on that farmer. So we want to make sure that we keep our farmers safe in ways that work for them. So I'm going to talk to you in that context a little bit about train the trainer as an approach. It's a very old approach. Many of you might have heard of it already, and it does exactly what it says in the tin. But there are some really interesting advantages to it and some limitations that we need to be always cognizant of when looking at train the trainer. And so I'm going to talk to you about it today in the context of farm safety. So just to give you an overview of what we're going to talk about today, we're just going to introduce the idea of train the trainer and what that means, the kind of classic approach, and its role in extension, agricultural extension as well. And then we're going to talk about the benefits that the train the trainer model has, particularly when we're dealing more generally, but also for farm safety. And then we're going to talk about the limitations, what we need to be cognizant of, what we need to have in the back of our minds. Whenever we're talking about train the trainer, it can seem like that it's almost free, and it's not. And so we want to be very clear that there are, that train the trainer needs to be done in a way that works for the trainers. Okay, so what I'm talking about train the trainer, what does that mean? Well, train the trainer is a framework for training potential instructors or subject matter experts, and it enables them to train others. So we're all familiar with this kind of a situation where you're coming to a learning provider and you're hearing directly from a learning provider. Well, train the trainer says, well, that's quite inefficient. Everyone has to be there at the same time, even if even if it's on a video, which would get over that. You're still talking to someone who maybe doesn't know your situation as well as someone who's actually a subject matter expert, a farmer like yourself, or someone who's doing your job. It's always best, I think, to hear from someone who knows your situation better. So the idea of training trainers, that is training people who are already doing the job to train others who are doing the job, is a very old idea, but it's in named use since at least the mid 20th century, around the time of the Second World War, where they were looking to quickly get best practice out, and they came across it. They came up with this approach called train the trainer. In fact, if you look at the history of agricultural extension, so extension where you have supports for farmers out in the community, well, that's very much again sees the extension agents as farmers, for example, advisors, but also then there's always been this idea of empowering peer-to-peer learning in the extension literature. So it has a long history, and this is how the classic train-the-trainer model goes. The classic train-the-trainer model is a four-stage model where you have people learning from a learning provider like myself. Then a farmer, for example, would come up and help me to teach a class. That would be the co-teaching stage. Then you have a takeover where I would sit in the audience, and then the farmer would then take a class of potential trainers, again getting feedback all the time, and then going for the final stage of delivery, where that farmer, now empowered and comfortable with being able to talk to others about in the situation, knowing how to deliver, then delivers to new students, and then we have touching base with the learning provider as they do so. And so, what are the benefits of the train-the-trainer approach? Well, we identified 4 different categories in which we can think of the benefits. And so the first one, I suppose the most obvious one when you're thinking about it, are the transmission benefits. And these are how we get the word out. How do we get best practices out from the learning providers, from the knowledge providers, to the folks who need that knowledge and who need to change their practices in line with that. So the one benefit in terms of transmission is cost effectiveness. If we train trainers, it allows those trainers to then train more people, and there's this kind of snowball effect where we get the knowledge out more quickly and cheaper. It's quicker in that the network effect means many more people are reached much more quickly with lower investment. So if you're all coming to the same learning provider, that's a one point. So it means you can't have learning happening in parallel. Once you have many trainers training, you have many sessions going on, many more people being contacted, many more people being educated. And then consistency. Consistency is in the train-the-trainer approach. Is a strength when it's done right. We're very clear about how the trainers need to train. We provide them with the materials to train. We talk to them about the challenges that they see that they might face, and we look at empowering the trainers to deal with those challenges when they come up. Then the next category of benefits are in terms of efficacy, or how well our education connects with the people whose behavior we'd like to change. So first part of it is acceptance. When trainers are training, they are training those that they know, they might have pre-existing relationships with. In Aswathi's case, we were training family members and local peers. Those trainers then are respected by those people. They have that relationship that enables them to then communicate more effectively. It enhances training quality. And the reason that happens is because when you're at the first stage, when the learning provider is speaking to the trainers to train them up, the trainers know what it's like to be a farmer. So our farmers that we train to be trainers, they know what it's like to be a farmer. So they will highlight really quickly aspects of our training or our education that are not connecting. And we can problem solve that before it ever goes beyond that stage. And so it pushes up the quality when we're talking to farmers early in the process. Tailored learning. Well, what we do is when we work with the trainers, we talk to the trainers about maybe there are different groups that they're going to be speaking to that need different things, and so they can then tailor to the local context. If they're dealing with a farm that's a beef farm, or they're dealing with a tillage farm, there will be different issues. And so we can work with the trainers to talk about different issues in different places and empower them to make those decisions, again, because they know the context. There are a set of benefits then for the trainers, for the farmers who become the trainers themselves. And those are, first of all, teaching, as I can verify this, vouch for this myself, teaching someone else is the best way to learn. It's when you really find those holes in your knowledge. It's when you have to try and say it to someone else, because before you get up in front of someone, you ask yourself, do I know what I'm going to be talking about today? And then you go back and you make sure that you do know it. Again, when you're working with the learning provider, you're going to be asking those questions, because if you know, you need to be able to take this and run with it yourself. So you're going to be demanding more from the learning provider as well. So it's a great way. It's the best way to learn, is to try and teach someone else. Trainers learn from their learners too. So our farmers who are going out and training are learning from their learners, and they're improving their practices. Another characteristic that's been seen in the literature is that if I teach about something, then I'm more likely to engage in best practice myself. So the more I speak about best practice, whether it's farm safety or in terms of, say, sustainability issues at home, then I'm more likely then to act in accordance with that, and I'm more likely to behave safely myself. Role models then build future supports. In order to train, trainers solve a lot of problems that are going to help that learning persist. Those include relationships with learners, so learners can come back to you and they can ask you questions. You know, you mentioned this last week. What's the story? You become a resource for those around you. They become empowered to ask questions, but also there are physical and other supports. You know, maybe it's down to, say, someone doesn't have a PTO shaft, which would be rare these days, or PTO shaft cover, but they hear about it, and then you're going to help them to generate those, to get those resources for themselves. Longer term benefits then, if we look beyond the kind of immediate training situation, there's much better training follow-up. Trainers are in contact with learners, so that because the farmers are teaching those they know, those are local to them, those that can rely upon them, then they're going to hear from the learners, you know, how the practices are bedding in over time. And so that contact means there's much better follow-up with training. And you know, training's not a one-shot thing. This idea that you have a sheep dip and you're like inoculated from making a safety error is not the case. Every day we commit to being safe. Every day we solve new problems to work safely. And so it's an ongoing thing. And so we need that follow-up so that people can stay safe every day. And then trainers know their learners well, they can check in and so on. Also, trainers really care whether their learners get it, because they already have those personal relationships, those peer relationships, where it matters to them if their peers get it. And all of these practices together, all of these conversations around safety, improve the safety culture among farmers. And so role models become safety ambassadors, and they raise standards around the place because people know what can be done. They know what working safely looks like. Now, there are many benefits for train a trainer, but there are limitations we need to keep an eye on. And that is, there is a burden on those farmers who are becoming trainers. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes relationships, it takes maintaining those relationships. That is going to be there for the farmers. And it may not be paid. We'd love to set up situations where it could be paid, but it may not be paid. And again, anything that's not being paid, it becomes a burden. Another aspect of it is because there's less oversight of the training that's occurring, the training by trainers might not be accurate. Now, we do we do a lot of work to ensure that the training is, that there is fidelity, that the training is the training we want to get out there. And that's part of how we do it. That's why we work through any say misunderstandings and so on. So that's a brief overview there of train the trainers for you. So train the trainer, we talked about train the trainer, what it is and its role and extension. We then talked about 4 categories of benefits. many very impactful benefits of train the trainer, but always keeping in mind those limitations in terms of what we're asking from our trainers and what that will require from us to make sure that they can do the best job, the job that they want to do, that we can empower them to do that job better. So thank you very much for your attention today. Glad to speak to you always. And thanks to John and Teagasc team for hosting the webinar. Do contact me at my email address at University of Galway if you have any questions. And I'll see you another day. Thanks very much.
No, thanks, Denis. Yeah, while you're taking down your presentation there, I'd like to thank you for an outstanding contribution. And it's great to work with you and your colleagues, and that and I think along with my colleagues, we'd like to get the messages out to farmers. Now, without any more ado, I'll hand over to Aswathi to give your presentation. Thanks, Aswathi.
Thank you, John. I'll share. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. First of all, thank you, John and Denis, for your wonderful presentations and for setting the stage for mine. So, welcome everyone to my presentation on Be Safe for Tractor Operations video, empowering farmers to lead training on blind spot awareness. This was developed as a part of my PhD work. My work took a focused lens on machinery-related farm safety and farmers' behavior, recognizing their pivotal role in overall farm safety. Our project team included researchers and safety experts from University of Galway and Teagasc. And today I'm not going into the details of the development of the intervention, but will delve into the findings from my pilot study, examining the intervention components, its mechanisms, and how it supports the train-the-trainer model. So, yeah. As John discussed in his presentation, knockdowns are a major concern and blind spots play a key role in it. And hence the primary objective of the intervention, the BTO intervention, was to equip the farmers with the knowledge, skills, and resources to adopt preventive safety behaviors to address tractor-related blind spots at their farms and improve farm safety. Now, literally, there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to tractors and its blind spots. So we identified the target behaviors for our intervention that can have maximum impact based on 5 criteria that were like the availability of evidence on the influence of the target behavior on fatal incidents, whether these target behaviors are potentially modifiable at farmer level, whether the farmers have the ability to carry out the behaviors regardless of their age. Is it a part of the recommended safer practice guidelines? And is it relevant to every tractor operating farmer regardless of their age and farm type? Based on these criteria, we decided on 3 specific target behaviors. And they were demonstrate the blind spots of tractors to family members and friends or co-workers on their farm, mark the zone of visibility around their tractors in a parking, and do a 360-degree check around the tractor every day. So what we intended with our intervention was to equip the farmers with the knowledge, skills, and resources to carry out these activities at their farm. And the intervention included 5 components: the peer-to-peer demonstration, facilitated discussion session, safety training procedure agreement, poster, and a demonstration kit. We recruited 20 participants across 3 sessions. We conducted 2 sessions in Kildare and 1 in Athenry. And each sessions were roughly 2 to 3 hours long. And 19 participants attended the in-person session, and we ensured the participation of both young and older farmers and the representation from all four major farm types. Then 18 out of the 19 participants, 18 completed the safety goals and 17 attended our post-intervention evaluation sessions. Now, at the end of the in-person session, we ran an anonymous survey and asked the participants to rate these four components on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being not useful and 5 being very useful. And everyone found all these four components useful or very useful. And after 2 weeks, we contacted the participants for a one-on-one interview and 17 responded. And in the interview, we asked the participants about their progress on performing these target behaviors at home. And all 17 participants confirmed that they have performed the demonstration with their family members, friends, or neighbors. Here you can see that the green indicates our 17 participants who directly attended our session, and the blue dot represents the family members, friends, or neighbors who participated in their home demonstration. On an average, each of our direct participants engaged 2.47 people in the home demonstration sessions, totaling 42 individuals involved in those indirect training sessions, or we can say the train. And this graph demonstrate, therefore, the reach of our intervention. Like, we trained 19 participants directly, and through them, we further trained 42 more individuals, totaling 61 participants. And the farmers positive, and here we can see that these blue dots, our participants went and trained different varieties of community members, from siblings, children, their neighbors, partners, or even students and employees. Here, the farmers' positive experience in participating in this demonstration, their readiness to carry forward their learning through home demonstration with family members and friends and co-workers, demonstrate the potential for a train-the-trainer model. And this intervention has successfully equipped the farmers with the knowledge and practical skills to reach out to others. And finding out the intervention finding out whether this intervention was successful or not was important, but it was also important for us to understand whether this model has the potential to address the blind spot, risk awareness on a larger scale, and whether this model can address other safety topics as well. So we will examine each of the main components of these interventions and see its potential for future implementation. Now, let's look at the first one, the demonstration. So demonstration had two components. The first one was estimating the stopping distance. What we did here was that we invited the participants to estimate the stopping distance, the stopping distance of a tractor that is moving. We invited the participants to estimate the distance covered by a tractor that is moving at a speed of 7 km per hour, roughly the walking speed. Then we invited these participants to stand in front of this tractor where they think the tractor would be in 3 seconds. Again, then we showed them the actual distance. And then we again repeated this exercise for 25 km per hour speed and for 50 km per hour speed. The purpose of this activity was to engage, persuade, and convince the farmers on the risk posed by the blind spots. And here, we had roughly 3 out of all the 19 participants who estimated the distance accurately. But rest of the farmers underestimated the distance, and there were none who overestimated the distance. And this feedback, which I have displayed here from the farmers, clearly shows their disbelief and shock. But why? This is not a new information, right? Usually this kind of information is provided to the farmers on a leaflet or in a classroom sessions. But still they didn't realize the extent, the speed, even at a slower speed, how much distance the tractor covers. Why there was a gap in their understanding? As usually when we as I mentioned, like usually we give this information like in a leaflet or through classroom sessions. And as noted in the farm safety literature, the farmers' typical responses are like, this is common sense, we already knew it. But here we had taken a different approach in terms of delivering this information. We invited the participants to make the estimation based on their knowledge, then test it, see it for themselves, and reach a conclusion on their own. Our role as was to facilitate this session, to allow them to give them an opportunity to test their knowledge and learn from it. This allowed the farmers to understand and correct their own their knowledge gap. It also generated a sense of curiosity among them, and in turn, it motivated them to do this at home. Some of our farmers had gone home and literally did the experiment to verify the distance. They literally moved the tractor to see whether the measurements, the numbers that we have given was right or not. Then this sense of shock, disbelief, and the gap in the knowledge convinced the participants to pay attention to the intervention and conveyed the urgency and the need for this the demonstration. And it helped us to set the stage for our next event. Now, coming to the second part, this of the demonstration. This was the demonstration of blind spots. So we had two tractors set up, one with a front loader and bale, and another with a trailer. And we invited 3 participants to identify the blind spots of each. We invited the first tractor. We invited 3 people to come forward and to help us identify the blind spot of the first tractor. And so we gave the participants a cutout. Let me see if I can show you that here. Yeah, a cutout like this of a child and a spray paint. So one of the participants sat on the tractor, then 2 were on the ground with the child size cutout. They moved around the tractor and marked the blind spots. This has repeated with another 3 participants on the second tractor. And here again, the intent was to generate a sense of curiosity, persuade the farmers, and to educate the farmers. We invited the participants to explore and see for themselves. During the activity, participants looked at the blind spots from different angles. Then they discussed the blind spots related incidents that they had heard about or they had experienced themselves. They practiced it and discussed how they can run this demonstration at home on their farm with their family members. They discussed what could happen if there is someone on the blind spots. They also discussed about different objects that can create added blind spots. For example, GPS. Even those who, so the underlying the theory that we used, the underlying message here was that even those who look over their own safety are concerned about the well-being of their family members and co-workers. So these discussions were intended to create a concern about the well-being of others, not just themselves, then to generate a sense of shared responsibility when it comes to safety, and generate a sense of, develop a sense of being the role models for their community when it comes to safety. Here again, there was a sense of disbelief on the number of blind spots that tractors have. Everyone knew about blind spots, but never actively investigated it. Many were surprised how even experienced farmers got it wrong. And they also observed that it that this in the hands-on demonstration helped them to gain the perspective not only of the operator but of the but how a pedestrian or somebody on the ground see the tractor and the driver. And it also further convinced them that they need to do the demonstration at home. And as a few participants noted, this is very relatable to them, very practical, visual, and kind of mimic their home environment, because each of our group had a combination of younger and older participants. So we try to create a sense of like their own home environment where the parent farmer teach the children, sorry. And our participants also confirmed that a combination of different age groups also helped them to learn from each other and to gain the perspective of different different groups. Now, after the demonstration, we had a short facilitated discussion session, and it was arranged as a support for farmers to perform the target behaviors at home. It was to help the farmers to plan, to identify if they have any obstacles, to do this demonstration at home, if we can find any solutions, if they have any obstacles. Our intervention planning sessions, we were expecting some pushback from the farmers regarding the effectiveness and the usefulness of home demonstration, but there was none. General consensus among farmers were that this is important and we have to make the time to do it. I think being in the situation, being in the blind spots, seeing it for themselves, helped to create that sense of urgency and the sense of the danger among the participants. And during when I asked about the feedback, when the feedback from participants about the facilitated discussion, one theme that I have observed across these discussion groups and my previous my previous focus group discussion sessions were that farmers found this discussions group highly useful for sharing ideas, learning from others, and to share and discuss the safety topics. But they also repeatedly highlighted the lack of focus on safety topics in the discussion sessions. And their suggestion was to dedicate a few minutes to discuss the safety topics in every discussion sessions. And this further strengthens the value. This further demonstrates the value of word of mouth, peer learning, and vicarious learning. Now, at the end of the facilitated discussion session, we shared a safety training procedure agreement with all the participants. And here, on the right side, you can see the document. And in the document, we put the target behaviors as safety goals and asked the farmers to make plans regarding each of them, to set a clear, actionable goals with a deadline, like when they can do it, with whom they are planning to do it. So make it more like more like one of our make it more actionable, like make a solid plan about it rather than having a tentative plans about when they are planning to do it. And at the end of the document, you can see two signatures, one the participant, then the peer, that is somebody who is sitting next to them. So this was to further encourage the adherence. We encouraged them to create a peer-to-peer agreement with another participant, and this was a completely voluntary activity with no fine for non-adherence. But still, the participants observed that the contract helped them to create a sense of ownership and accountability. Moreover, the safety activities are often low priority for farmers, often postponed or put on hold forever. But by defining actionable goals and setting deadlines, we made it more practical and time dependent, time sensitive. And also, this demonstrates the potential of accountability partners to increase adherence to safer practice. Here, the feedback also demonstrate that even in a different intervention or in other safety activities, whenever you are trying to educate or raise awareness, it is good to put it's at the end of the sessions. You can, while you are summarizing your while you are trying to summarize the session, it is good to give the participants an actionable goals, how they can use the information that they learned, how they can do, how they can use it in the future. And also it helps if you can provide them with an opportunity to create a friendly agreement with their peers, so that they can, keep track of the progress that they make. Now, at the end of the session, we distributed a demonstration kit to all the participants. It had everything they needed to complete the safety goals at home. It had the child-sized cutout, then a spray paint, a A4-sized poster. I will come to the poster soon. Then the safety agreement that they filled out, and a few safety information leaflets. This was to help them to this was to support them by providing them with the prompts and the resources to complete the demonstration at home. Sorry, yeah, I'll come to this later. And the participants observed that when they have the resources handy, it is easy to carry out these activities in time and not to procrastinate. Though they had 2 weeks to complete these activities at home, almost all of them completed it within the first week of the intervention itself. And few of them did the intervention multiple times, and a few others did it with the other vehicles like teleporters and other trailers. And a few reported that they are planning to do it again when their grandchildren or students visit their farms. In addition to that, the participants also, with no further prompt from our side, after the home demonstration, they made some additional changes on their farms, like installation of reverse cameras, purchase of more appropriately sized trailers, then setting up the reminders to do the 360-degree check every day, then booking an appointment with an expert to check the tractor's health, especially the brake. And now these were the successful parts of our intervention. Now let's see the less successful parts. Throughout the in-person session, we had this poster displayed on a big canvas, and it had the statistics about the the fatalities. And when we asked the participants at the end of the session whether they found the poster useful or not, almost everyone found it either useful or very useful. This was at the end of on the day of the intervention, at the end of the session. But after 2 weeks, when we contacted these farmers and asked them about these posters, most of them couldn't recollect what was in the poster. There was one farmer who put it on their wall. Then there was another one who planned to read it, but no other farmer has even seen these posters after going home. And no one, regardless whether it's young farmer or older farmer, everyone had difficulty recalling what the content of the poster was. And on top of that, we had We had a copy of this poster in the demonstration kit. Like a big one was presented, displayed on a big canvas on the day of the intervention. And then we had an A4 sized poster in the demonstration kit. But still, no one was, I don't think, except for these two farmers, two participants, no one else has even seen that, even noticed that the farmers carried out these safety goals and target behaviors at home. They didn't refer back to that safety agreement which they have signed to after going home. So this highlights the limitation of these paper-based tools. They are good as short-term communication tools. They are good to visualize the information. They are good to summarize the information. But it had a very limited impact after the day of the intervention. Even it was just a small window, like a 2 weeks window, but still they couldn't recall the content of the poster. So this begs the question why this tool remains as one of the most popular education tool when the farmers least engage with this particular the paper-based tools. Now, while participants were satisfied with the intervention, found it effective and useful, they were not confident that we will be able to recruit participants in a large number if we are planning to roll this out on a national scale. As one participant noted, you are preaching to the converted. Most of these participants are already safety conscious, but how do we reach out to more reluctant part-time farmers or the farmers' family members who occasionally joined work on these farms? How do we engage with this hard to reach or hard to engage segment of this farming community? I think that is where the safety ambassadors and the trainer approach comes to the picture. If you look at these feedbacks here, the first one is about an younger participant who went back home. The first one is about feedback from an older participant who went home and did the demonstration with young members of his family. And the second one is feedback from a younger participant who did the demonstration at home with his father. And we have one of our Teagasc researcher, Tracy O'Connor, who recently ran a safety session in Clare using this model. And she has demonstrated the blind spots among children. And then we had a confirmation from an independent safety trainer that he has rolled out the demonstration in his training session also. And these findings demonstrate its ability. These findings demonstrate the acceptability, accessibility, and usability of this model, of this intervention across age groups, and its effectiveness in empowering these farmers to become safety ambassadors within their community. So based on these findings, what are our key recommendations for a future safety intervention? We need to look beyond the traditional educational strategies. The farmers were concerned about the excessive paperwork and administrative burden associated with the safety programs. The leaflets, newsletters, and other passive forms of information disseminations were not forward. And instead, the farmers favored a peer-to-peer hands-on learning approaches. They emphasized the importance of strategic planning and personalized support in implementing these safety measures on farms. Moreover, the intervention needs to be comprehensive. Knowledge alone may not create the intended behavior change. We need to provide the knowledge along with the motivation, opportunity, and resources to make it feasible. You can read more about our work and please contact us if you would like to know more about it. Thank you.
No, thank you, Aswathi. Thank you for an excellent presentation. Now, without any further ado, I'll open the floor to all of you to ask any question of Aswathi or Denis or myself that you wish. Okay. No, first question, please.
I might start there, John, just to get the ball rolling. Denis, I suppose, not to be negative, but one of your last comments was associated with the burden of train the trainer, and I suppose it's where we all kind of get to the point where we have great intention, but to encourage farmers to participate is, how do we get across that? Or, can you maybe talk a little bit about it? I know there's no silver bullet, but what's your comments on that area?
Thanks, Francis. Yeah, it really is the single most important barrier to train the trainer is making it easy and accessible for trainers to have the time and the support to do what they'd like to do. It's not a barrier that's easily overcome, and it's different for farmers at different ages and from different production systems. There's going to be it's one of those things. I think if you're looking at train the trainer as an approach, that you're going to be looking at how do you go out there, talk to farmers about the idea, talk about what it would take for them, and also I think the timing is an important issue. I think that some way to incentivize it in terms of not paying people to do it, because you don't want to pay people to do it because sometimes if you pay people too much to do it, then people see there's money at the end of it, and then the system starts to be gamed. So you still want people to be motivated, like the folks who are going to be out there training others. You want them to be motivated. You don't want money to be their motivation, but you don't want the fact that money is a problem getting in the way. And so that's a sweet spot where you're just saying, look, we realize this is going to be an inconvenience. To manage that, we can do something. I don't know whether what that might be in terms of not an incentive, but something that just makes it easier for the farmers. And it's really, if the problem is, as soon as if you pay people to do it, it can be gamed, and that's not what you want, and that's really destructive to the system, and it gives the system a whole bad name. So I think it's something, when you look at the timing of the events, the timing of which farmers, given the different farming systems have different kind of annual patterns of work, right? And if you're looking at then at fitting with farmers, talking to farmers about times where these events might work better for them, you look at and the thing about it is tractor blind spots are an issue on all kinds of farms. So, but there might be a better time to have those conversations when farms are a little bit quieter, And so I think you're looking at working with farmers to find a schedule that would work for them. You're looking to find the farmers who are already, highly engaged and highly motivated, make it easy for them. You're most likely folks who you're going to convert to your new set of trainers are the folks that those folks are training, but you then get in and you start to try and build a motivation, and then you work through the system in a way that the way that we're deploying the trainer system that the farmers can know and trust that if they get involved, they're going to be supported. They know and trust that that it's doable. That they've other farmers telling them that they did it and it was a positive process. And then you can also look beyond farmers at farm members of the farm family that might have more time. Maybe spouses, maybe older sons or daughters, thinking a bit more broadly about the trainers that we can get out there, because the benefits of the trainer in terms of folks that understand the local situation, that will push the training quality up. It'll be training that's better for the farmers if farmers are delivering it and helping us get the quality up to where it needs to be. So those are just some ideas. But you're right. I don't think you can talk about train the trainer without thinking about that burden and sensible ways to look at when the burden is least, sensible ways then to have the impact be highest. I think that's how to do it.
Great. Well, thanks, Denis. Any further? Peter Gormley, you look like you're gearing up to ask a question there.
Thanks, John.
I should say to my colleagues, I invited a number of people from the Farm Safety Partnership Education Committee along, and I'd like to congratulate Peter Gorry, who's well known to most, who has become an inspector with the Health and Safety Authority. Now,
John,
Peter, your burning question.
My burning question, I suppose, look, go back to Denis. Denis, look, great work, and Aswathi, brilliant as well. The thing I have is the trainer going to be a cost in the sense for to do the course? Like, looking at the cost there, $650, is kind of an average cost on training the trainer. And I suppose then, like, once you're going out talking to farmers, like if farmers are coming in, how are you going to get them into a group setting to do training with them? And will there be a cost? Have you looked at that, or what else is going on,
Oh, no, come here. No, I'll answer that. We haven't looked at it at all, really. All we've done at this stage is we've done, Aswathi has done her work in testing the approach, right? Maybe that's why I've invited people like you, Peter, to make you aware of the situation and, to bring it forward and to see what more we can do from now on, That's where we're at with it. No, but I would just make the point generally, and my colleagues will all know this, getting people in the door is always the first challenge, Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know that what you call it above in Westmeath, there was a few counties there, like they got together, and one of the, I suppose, the carrots to get people in is to give a free train-the-trainer course to the lads that was there, and then they went out and they talked on safety, a mentor program. I suppose, to be one way of kind of get more involved in it, is what I'd be saying, like once you're given, because lads will be looking to recoup the cost of it. And as Denis rightly said, like, if you're going to bring money into it, then, lads are not going to want to do it,
Yeah. Aswathi, you were...
Yeah. If I may come in here, couple of suggestions that my participants gave to reduce the cost and to encourage the participation was that package it with, instead of trying to bring the participants to the intervention location, go to the participants, like package it with the existing programs or locations. Like, for example, in Farm Mart, you can set up a small tent, and it's a very visual, like especially in the case of blind spots, it's very visual. We can, within a matter of seconds, we can convey the message that we are trying to convey. So we can package it with like an existing program, like a farm walk, or other events like that, or maybe have a small tent set up in a farm mart or in other farm events. So this kind of helps to generate a sense of curiosity. But again, this may not be applicable for every safety topic, because in this case, it was very visual. It was easy to convey. So for other safety topics, we may have to work with the farmers to identify that sweet spot.
Great. Maybe Serena, delighted to see you here. You're a stalwart, I think. You were involved in this project and you're a stalwart of blind spot demonstrations. Have you any thoughts on the whole area, or, from your experiences of it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do it a lot now at the acres courses as well. It's kind of, we have them out around the tractor and the two little, models to demonstrate the point. And the stopping distance that Aswathi was talking about was really good. A lot of farmers, like your own feedback there, Aswathi, that they didn't realize that the braking speed was such a distance, the braking distance. But I'm just wondering, to get the message out there, the TAMS, half day health and safety courses. I suppose we're getting farmers that are coming in now and they've done the course, their 5 years has run out and they're coming back a second time. Would it be, an opportunity to bring it in to those courses as new material? Because I'm going to have the acres health and safety slots as well. So it might be something to think about for those.
Yeah, they're controlled, if that's the right word, there's a specification by the department, but I don't see fundamentally a problem, I don't see any problem really, yeah.
Yeah, because we're starting to meet the same farmers again now, the second time.
Yeah, no, even the third time for that matter. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Keep the interest there.
Yeah. No, but tell me, how do you find the farmers? You do it just as a demonstration. How do you find farmers relate to the demonstration?
Yeah, they do. Anything visual is always a bigger impact. And what Aswathi was saying, you'd be afraid sometimes with health and safety that you're not going to get good buy-in from farmers. But when you do something like that and it's a very clear message, it definitely is very effective. So they do find it. And I've been kind of going further since I was working with Aswathi to say, bring this home and maybe do this at home with the children or whoever's working on the farm. And that's another good message, I think, because you're going further with it.
Yeah. No, thanks, Serena.
John, can I ask something there?
Of course you can.
I'm sorry, I haven't got a camera.
Who is this?
Pat Flannery.
Pat.
Yeah. Just as what he covered there, and maybe Peter might have a comment on this as well. I'd be interested. The idea that farmers, who maybe not even be concerned for their own safety, are very concerned about the people around them, and that makes an awful lot of sense to me. But I was just wondering, how do we work with that a bit more? That, even with something like blind spots or whatever, it's maybe a lot of it still comes back to the farmer, and that's, do you know what I mean? Rather than it comes back to everybody, but the farmer might be very careful with the people he's working with, or maybe the staff he has, but maybe to reinforce the point about care for themselves.
Yeah, no, maybe I think, Denis, I'll hand that over to you. But before you do, maybe could I say 2 points that you made? I think, the best way to learn anything is to teach it, that is an absolute fact. And I think most of the people, I see Niall McCabe here and, many of my colleagues here, nearly all my colleagues will be involved in teaching. So that's one aspect of it. No, but I think the second aspect of the question is, getting a person who is, let's say, skeptical or, passive or whatever, and kind of getting them into the process of delivering the training to another person, close to them, a family member or a farm worker that has that potential to change attitudes, really. I think that is the question. Denis, yeah, should I just...
So thanks there, Pat. You highlighted something that's been seen in a number of different safety literatures, which is that often some of the folks that we're asking to be safe, they are less concerned about their own safety than they are of safety of others. And so, for example, on oil rigs, there was a lot of work done on making sure your buddy gets home alive, right? So rather than saying to you, I want to make sure you've got to be safe for yourself, there's a tradition, a kind of a macho tradition, particularly in Western culture, around trading health for wealth. So you're like, I'm willing to give up, I'm willing to work so much that I hurt myself in order to gain to kind of keep my farm, to keep my family fed, you know. And that idea of trading health for wealth has a long history, and it's not you can, you know, that kind of when you have a job that's so 24/7 as farming, that kind of drive is almost required, you know. So what happens then is that folks can sometimes be cavalier, you know, in the extreme case, but sometimes just not as cognizant of their own safety. And then when we highlight then, listen, doing things safely is important so that you can keep others safe. That's one way in. And then one of the approaches that they actually used in Northern Ireland for some of their farm safety messaging concerned what happens when a farmer passes away and the impacts of a farmer passing away on the farm family, and keeping yourself safe, you know, in order so that your family can be safe. So it's like, you know, and connecting that you very strongly, like it's that thing. I don't know if you're in road safety as well. What happened if you notice, parents tend to be safer drivers because they know sometimes they're driving kids, but also they know that kids depend on them. And so when you make these, so there's often useful ways in which you can make that clear, and it does resonate with people. But for me, any motivational intervention, right? Whenever we try and raise motivation, which is important for people to do new things. If there are blockages in front of people that they know are there and they can't deal with for some reason, whether it's time, whether it's they don't have the resources, if we raise motivation without taking those barriers away or enabling our farmers and our other workers to get past those barriers, then raising motivations without taking those barriers away is not a good idea. And the reason it's not a good idea is twofold. One is if I'm motivating you to do something and you know you can't do it, you just think I'm out of touch, right? And I'm gonna then lose my ability to change your behavior ever again. You're like, Dennis, you don't know what you're talking about. Don't talk to me again. And the more I motivate you and the more effective I am at motivating you, right, the worse it is, right? Because imagine, you know, because even if you think about that motivational message around keep yourself safe for your kids, and that hits home for people, then straight away they contact their inability to change the situation. And now they've got this, now they're just getting frustrated. And the frustration will be directed back at the person who's motivating them and at the content that they're being asked to do. So we just have to be really careful when we motivate people, because we kind of always go to motivation. If you really cared, you'd fix it kind of idea. And there is, look, motivation it is the mother of invention in many ways, right? You know, you need to solve something and you will solve it. But what will happen is when someone knows that they can't solve something, we raise their motivation, it's problematic. So it's one of those things. Yes, there are useful ways to motivate farmers, but we always need to be thinking about the barriers and taking those seriously. And then, but also then opening up, like saying, look, practically, what can be done with these barriers? What does the solution to this barrier? Because some barriers are actually manageable and some are not. And so we just need to be, we need everyone on board on how we can best deal with the barriers to safe behavior that are out there.
Oh, great. No,
Thanks, Dennis. That's very interesting. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Could I
everyone.
throw in something there, if you don't
Well,
mind, just for a second? There's another way that this could be approached as well, I would think, because I wasn't quite sure of why we were on this call, to be honest, where we were being asked to get farmers in to train, then to send them off into the great blue yonder, and maybe we're not at that stage yet. But I know I certainly get asked to go into secondary schools around here in Leitrim and in Sligo as well to talk to the ag science classes about health and safety. And one of the first things I do, certainly if I'm going into the Leaving Cert classes kind of after Easter, I ask for a show of hands of how many are willing and dying to go with contractors for the summer drawn in silage. And there's a huge shoot up of hands that are all around the room between boys and girls. And I'm just wondering if that's maybe, you know, if this, given that over the age of 16 that they can legally and it's not a problem, maybe some of the training or influence to get trained or get farmers trained needs to actually come from the kids rather than the farmers being told they need to stay alive for their kids. And maybe if the demonstration was done in some of the secondary schools and the kids were asked to go home and try it out on mum and dad in the yard and see what they think of it, then that there could be a link established there, then that anybody who might end up training these people to be trainers could get them involved with their discussion groups in their own right rather than us going into the discussion groups. And it could actually start from the secondary school ag science class. Kind of, you know, a colleague of mine said there at the water quality conference in Tullamore the other day that there's nothing quite like getting a child to guilt a parent into doing something better or right. And it does work. So maybe there's just another approach to this to get farmer buy-in to implementing best practice and observances of blind spots. There's nothing quite like their own child or the youngest in the family being stood at a tractor wheel to say, can you see me, you know? So it might be just another avenue in to get the message out that the guilt.
Yeah, no, Veronica, thanks for that suggestion, and I think it has great merit and it deserves consideration, you know. And that now the opposite has happened. You know, people have come to Teagasc recently to kind of say, can we go out and train all these young people that want to drive tractors for the summer? No, but the reality is we haven't the resources to do that. So we need to develop another, you know, when I say we collectively need to develop another way. And, you know, maybe by reversing the thing and getting the younger people to provide the training to the adults, you know, and that has been, I've seen other research that would show that does work.
And it's not even necessarily the training, it's maybe the impact of not being trained. Potentially, you know, for the shock effect that a child would say to dad in the yard, well, you know, can you see this 2 foot high or 3 foot high thing? You know, it might just be enough of the shock effect to encourage dad to get involved in the training to spread the word.
Yeah, no, but there's, Dennis, you can comment again now, but there's benefits on both sides, like the young person and the older, or the, you know.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea. I think the guilt thing might be there, but the biggest strength you have with that group is that they have more time, and they may have more motivation. So you have so potentially if you can set it up as part of a project that they do, it's something that then they can document. But what's most important to happen is that they'll start. What will happen is the conversation that'll go on the farmyard will generate solutions to problems, right? So things like, you know, do we need a barrier here so that, like, you know, nobody goes in at a certain time of day because you can't see, you know, is there going to be a specific location where we park the tractor because you know, with its nose out so that you know that the visibility is best, you know, in the morning when they're driving out. A ton of what I think is really useful. There are two things. One is that we're getting the young and we're training them into best practice when they're young, which is a really great. I'm just, you know, it's a fantastic way forward. The second thing is you're dealing with potentially students that you can incentivize with learning credit, right? So you can incentivize them in different ways. You then also can have them ask very simple questions around problem solving, you know, in their local context, problem solving their farmyard or a farmyard that they can get access to. And and it starts to change the conversation, then yes, you also have the guilt thing that's there, but even more important as well, more important than the motivation piece, it's the problem solving, the real solutions to real problems that are in that situation. You're solving a time problem by using the students, and you potentially are solving other environmental problems within each farmyard by asking the student to solve those as part of a project, and then you have the incentivization as part of the system as well. I think there are a ton of benefits. It's a really good spot, Veronica.
Oh, no, thanks, Denis and Veronica. Kieran Kinahan, can you hear me there, Kieran Kinahan? I don't, okay.
John, I know there, while we're waiting for him to come in, a few years ago when I was in Ballyhaise, one of the things they were telling me they did during their open day was they had, I think John Joe's on the line. He can maybe fill us in more. They brought in the national school, primary and post-primary kids, and they did that, the blind spots kind of behind trailers, but it was based on the smaller trailer. It wasn't the big agricultural contractors' machinery, but kind of the typical type of machinery that was on a farm. Got the kids to sit up on the tractor as well to see exactly where their friends were positioned and could they see them. So like as Veronica said earlier, they would be able to take home the message as well, I think, which is brilliant. And especially when you're at that, like if the kids come home and they're able to tell daddy, kind of elbowing them and telling them what's going on, he will listen quicker than some adult kind of telling them. He'll put it in one ear. But if the kids are driving it, I believe it's a better system. So
yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. Yeah, John Joe, yeah.
Yes, lads. Peter and John, I have to acknowledge that was an excellent task that we carried out here at Ballyhaise College. The kids were brought in here to have a look around there, and it was a health and safety day. And Peter, you would know there because you've been around a number of occasions there promoting health and safety there. Again, we had tractors and trailers on the job there, and the kids would walk around there, and all the kids went up in the tractors and had a look around there. And in most cases there, if a child was within 10 foot of the tractor and trailer, they were totally invisible. And a lot of that work went back to the parents, an awful lot of that information back to the parents there. And we are getting word back from that there. And over the years there, we'll continue doing that, by the way. And over the years there, we've got all that information coming back from the parents, and it was well done. And in fairness there, looking at Serena there and John McNamara there, over the years there, I was down in Athenry there a couple of years ago, and I think that was the first time we carried out that task there, where John and Serena there set up a tractor there with trailer on there and the blind spots there and that kind of thing there. And it was a very, very worthwhile task. Very, very much so.
No, thanks, John. Maybe it's something we can all progress. Maybe could I just comment on another aspect of it? Blind spots was one aspect, but I think Denis O'Hora might know this, but and Aswathi, but I'm phobic about speed. That speed increases the risk the whole time. So we shouldn't forget about the speed dimension. When we're talking about blind spots, the two go together. I feel, yeah. Any more comments, please? Come here,
Sorry.
Gillian. Sorry, Gillian, I'll be in touch with you. Francis.
And I was just going to ask Aswathi, just based on the previous conversation, like comments in relation to the interest of the older farmer versus the younger participants in the focus groups. Or did you note that some of the older farmers were more interested or less interested, or have you any kind of comments to make on that?
No, I don't. For the focus group, we had only older farmers, but for the intervention, we had the combination of both younger and older farmers. We didn't find any difference in their response or the engagement with the intervention. Both the younger and older farmers have confirmed that they prefer this kind of age group composition in the future safety demonstrations, because they felt that while younger farmers have the advantage of good health, speed, and all, older farmers have the advantage of the knowledge and experience. So both of them have something to learn from each other, and the younger farmers can also provide some information on the new technologies, new devices that are added to the tractors, which can create more blind spots. So I think this kind of group helped them to create more discussion around the topic, like the different options out there, different cases, different risk factors. So I think that it kind of enriched the discussion group, but there was no difference in the acceptability.
Right, thanks. No, Gillian, no, just Gillian, you're with McNamara, any thoughts, just maybe on how we could progress with McNamara and something along, the blind spot speed demo,
So actually, I was thinking of your opportunity to collaborate with AgriAware, not to be thrown away, but they have their Farm Walk and Talk series. That's what I was Googling there, coming up the end of this month and next month. So
yeah, that's in ag colleges, I think, is it? Yeah.
A good few of the ag colleges, so there might be an opportunity to replicate the blind spots with the 5th and 6th years.
Yeah, well, sure, we can pass on the information to colleges if they might have their plans made, but yeah.
I know health and safety there's always at least one stand on that, so
yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, thanks for that, Gillian.
And I'll have a think. I'll bring it back to McNamara and have a think of what we can work on ourselves.
No, appreciate that. Yeah, yeah. No, I don't want to be saying too much now. Could any other comments from anyone, please? Kevin.
Yeah, I was just wondering there for Aswathi, really, just going off your earlier slide there, that 25% of the participants found the handout of the blind spot very useful, and almost no take up on that. Then when they brought it home, that the one man intended to read it and didn't even get that far. I was just wondering, preparing as I am now for a TAMS health and safety course next week, and I was actually doing up some handouts here to try and encourage some engagement with them. Is there any way to make it in such a way that they would possibly bring it home with them, or possibly have you any solutions to that problem?
Unfortunately, no. This was a topic that we discussed quite a lot during the focus group, then our co-design workshop, and during this intervention evaluation time. The feedback we received from farmers were that unless it is attached to something more, like the risk assessment document, right? That is the only document that so far I heard from farmers a positive response, because that has a different purpose. They are convinced that this risk assessment document is useful. They have to keep record of the repair and the other damages, everything they have to keep track. So they use that document because they are convinced that it has a different purpose. It is not just for education. But rest of the documents, no, almost all of them told me that they just kept it and never revisited. Sorry.
No, but Kevin,
don't in there just as another suggestion. One of the things that's a problem with flyers or brochures, you probably have a drawer somewhere at home yourself that's full of brochures you've never read, right? Anything that's just text and doesn't require any interaction with it it feels like you can do it anytime, and anything you can do anytime never gets done. And so if you're looking for people to engage with text or leaflet like that, which could be very useful for them, right? Your idea here is they're going to contact the material at one point, and they will remember some of that. If they can contact it a second time through the brochure, they're more likely they'll retain it more likely they'll use it, right? So it makes sense to try and get that extra contact. In order for that to happen, one thing you can do is have, instead of having a brochure, have some kind of a workbook, right? And so because they have something to do, and honestly, it doesn't have to be much, right? But they have to open it, they have to read it, they have to, you know, and then you don't have to check up on it too much, because you give them a phone call, say that, you know, or phone call, you don't, just if there's a way in which it's a really low touch survey that you're going to send out as an online survey, did you fill out your workbook, we're just interested in seeing what people did, and you tell people beforehand you're going to get that you're going to ask them about the workbook, and you have in the workbook, in the sections where they have to do some task that where they're going to have to read the task to do it, you have your critical piece of information that you want them to read next to that task. And so that gives you it gives you more of a shot, because again, the thing about a workbook is you have to do something to complete it. It's probably something that has to be done in a location, because it's more specific. There's a sense in which I can or cannot do it. It's not something I can do anytime. Because it's something I can't do just anytime, I will then have to prioritize it into a time I have, and it makes it more likely that you'll engage with the task. And so that's just, if you want people to engage with written material, that's one way you can do that. It would increase the probability.
And if I may add one more here, I think we had a little, not a solid evidence, but we had some evidence on the benefit of accountability partners. So when you are using this information, if you have like some follow-up actions to do, and if you are connecting that farmer with another peer who can follow up with them, right, on the whatever the material is on the document, you know, having a discussion with each other after 2 weeks or something, I think there is a scope for increasing the engagement.
Yeah, no, Kevin, I'd persevere with something, giving people something and going away. I was thinking of the, I won't show now, but the risk assessment document, but, you know, like, you know, putting a challenge into as Denis says, into the document and making it colourful and punchy and short, you know, I think that's the way you need to give handouts or to give follow-up material. You know, and I think I'm glad to say that we've got the risk assessment fairly right, you know, in that regard, like that, you know, we've got very good feedback on it as a document, you know, and I think it's, you know, for the right reason. We kept the old text chart and good graphics and good pictures, and you know, and there is a challenge to do some, you know, to take action in the document. You know, I'd like to thank you all for coming and for your participation. You know, I'd like to thank in particular, compliment Aswathi on your PhD and achieving it, you know, without any alterations or corrections, which is a fantastic achievement. No, and I know we will, if it's okay, we might get in further contact. And there's other aspects to your PhD, older farmers, and I know you have further papers in publication. So we'd like to keep in touch with you, you know. So thank you for your outstanding contribution. You know, Denis, thanks to you and to your psychology colleagues in UG. You know, I think you gave us some marvelous insights today. And, you know, I think we're involved in other projects. And indeed, I think you're involved in water quality projects as well, with Mary Ryan and Cathal O'Donoghue and that. So it's great. It's great that you're working with us to find solutions, you know. So thank you all for your presence here and for participating in the session.